Hi, I'm Chloe, and in this video, I'm going to answer a question about a book I read in English called The Truth About Stories by Thomas King. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the intro, some background on the book, what King says about our responsibilities, 3 big ways he challenges us as readers, and the conclusion. First, a bit of background. The Truth About Stories is a lecture series by Thomas King from 2003. He tells funny and meaningful Indigenous stories, but they're also really deep. He talks about stuff like identity, history, politics, culture, and how stories connect to all of that. But most of all, he shows how stories shape how we think, what we believe, what we assume, and that is powerful. The book also helps people understand Indigenous experiences in Canada. Some parts can make you laugh, whereas some might make you feel uncomfortable. And that's kind of the point. King really wants us to really think. The main topic question I'll be going over today is, what is King trying to communicate about the reader's responsibility in this book? Explain 3 ways that the reader can be challenged through the stories. Our responsibilities as readers. Well, King's trying to tell us that once we hear a story, we are part of it. We cannot unhear it. And that means we have to decide, what do I do with this story? Do I just ignore it? Or do I let it change the way I see things? He's saying that stories aren't just entertainment, they're lessons and warnings, and sometimes even challenges. It's on us to use them in a good way, or at least not in a harmful way. 3 ways readers can be challenged. Challenge number 1. King opens each chapter with the story of charm to show how different versions of the same story can lead to different worldviews. One that values cooperation versus one that emphasizes punishment and sin. Same story, different meanings. He also says the truth about stories is, that's all we are. And honestly, that hit me, because if stories we hear tell us we're failures or not good enough, then that's what we're going to start believing about ourselves. And if stories say that a group of people is dangerous or lazy, we'll believe that too, even if it's not true. So basically, readers are challenged to start asking, how have stories shaped my thinking? Challenge number 2. The second challenge is to question the stories we've always believed. King goes deep on this one. He talks about Indigenous people are often shown in the past as tragic victims, not as people today with value and as a real human or like anyone else. That story makes people seem as less than, which is just wrong. And then there's the story about residential schools. The government told everyone it was to help Indigenous kids, but King shows how that was just a fake story to cover up something awful and cruel. Kids being taken away and hurt. Readers are challenged to ask, what stories have I accepted without questioning, and why? Challenge number 3. King doesn't let us off that easy. At the end of the book, he tells us, don't say you haven't been warned. That line is basically saying, now that you know the truth, you have to do something with it. He also calls out people who believe stories that are comfortable, like the idea of the lazy Indian. That story still gets told because it excuses bad behavior and makes people feel like it's okay about ignoring unfairness and no justice. Readers are challenged to stop and ask themselves, is this story true, or is it just easy to believe? So, what does King want us to do? He wants us to pay attention to stories, not just listen, but think. Ask, where do they come from? What do they mean? And what do they do to us and to others? He wants us to take responsibility, because stories shape everything, and we even shape the world when we choose what stories we're going to believe and what stories we're going to tell. So, the next time you hear a story, stop and ask yourself, what am I going to do with this? Thanks for watching. I hope this helped you see that stories aren't just stories, they are choices.